Hello there, Sir from 17 once again, introducing you to my Dark Souls video walkthrough. We've just arrived at the Firelink Shrine, and this is pretty much where the game begins. So there's no real right way to tackle the game, there is only suggested paths that you should take, because each section is leveled at a different area. So if you go to a place that's a higher level than you are early on, it's going to be exceptionally difficult. And the place that people usually go off the start is the Undead Burg. And that is the place we're going to be going after I show you a couple of things to do to get you a little bit more powerful from the start. So you'll notice I use the bonfire and I immediately start leveling up, which is something you should do. A couple of things to bear in mind with levels. As far as strength and dexterity go, only put them as high as the weapon you want to use. You get almost no benefits from those statistics unless you use a weapon that scales with that damage. And to check to see if a weapon does scale, it's the parameter bonus with the A, B, C, D ranking on the weapons. So if you've got a weapon that has a pretty high rank for that, then feel free to pump those statistics a little bit more than you normally would. The attunement statistic, only put points into that if you want to do more spells. If you're not going to be casting any spells, don't touch it whatsoever. Never level up the resistance statistic, because it's just not worth it. Your armor will do all the resistance that you need. Vitality is obvious, endurance is obvious, make sure you put plenty into those, and that's pretty much it. The leveling is a lot more limited than you would think, but what I'm doing here is a suicide run to get a Firekeeper soul. So this is a place called New Londo, and these are ghosts, and the ghosts are very dangerous early on because you need a specific item to hit them. But don't worry, this path right now, I'm not going to be attacking any ghosts, because when you go over here, make sure you run straight, and be careful when you go past the ghosts, because you do clip on them a little bit. There's the Firekeeper soul. I tried to run back and jump, but I ended up falling off. It doesn't matter, because they would have killed me anyway, and we get teleported back to Firelink, which is exactly what we wanted. Now that I've done that, I can go down to the Firekeeper that's just on the bottom ledge of this area, give her the soul, and it will reinforce my Estus Flask, but I don't think I do that immediately, because I just wanted to show it. But a lot of people early on who chose the Master Key on the character selection, which I didn't mention on that video. The Master Key is the best item to pick, it just makes so much sense, and this guide will be designed with the Master Key in mind, so make sure you choose it. It's so useful, it's so powerful, and it skips out one of the worst parts of the game. Or skips a majority of it, I should say. But a lot of people early game will go through the shortcut near New Londo that leads out to the Valley of the Drakes, and they'll go up to the Zombie Dragon and get the Magic Crest Shield, and they'll get the Astora Straight Sword. And if you're making a Faith character, that's a really good choice to do, because that weapon scales off Faith, and it's a nice early leveled weapon before you get the Drake Sword, if you so choose to do so. But I generally don't do it, and it's not because it's not a good strategy, it's just because it's an unnecessary journey early on that I don't generally need, because the shield is good, but I'm going to be getting probably a Heater Shield or a Hollow Knight Shield, and the sword is good, but I'm going to be getting the Drake Sword very soon, so it doesn't really matter. But you'll notice there's been a quick crossfade. I've changed my appearance a little bit so that I can probably roll a little faster as I get jump attacked by this guy. You'll also notice I'm two-handing my bandit's knife. The reason for this is purely efficiency. The shield that I'm using doesn't give me enough defense, and I generally two-hand until I get a 100% defense shield. So that's why I'm doing this. Your first time through this area will probably be much more tentative than mine, but I have played this game quite a lot, as you can see, so... Although sometimes you wouldn't think so, and I get hit by really silly attacks. But never ever underestimate the importance of two-handing your weapon. It deals double the damage it normally would. It's really useful, especially when you're using a strong weapon. And a lot of new players will never two-hand because they're too busy hiding behind their shield, and it's something you need to get into the habit of doing. Another good tip is, there is a multitude of attacks you can do with your weapons, and each one is different depending on which one you're using. So experiment with running and pressing attack to see what the running attack is. Experiment with attacking directly after a roll to see what the roll attack is. Experiment with the jumping attack and the strong attacks. And if you have no idea how to do the jumping attack, it is forward and right trigger, or I don't know what it's going to be on the keyboard, guys. I am sorry. I'm recording this before the game is even out, but it'll jump. And if you want to do the kick, which is exceptionally good at breaking guards and stunning people, it's forward and the standard attack button at the same time. And it's really good against shield people, so you'll probably see me use it against those. But early on, one really important notion is never ever get yourself surrounded by mobs. Never ever push into an area where there's a lot of enemies, or you're going to be in trouble. You'll notice there is my retrieval sign, because I did die up here. I made a mistake that you want to avoid. I ran past all these enemies to get to this bonfire, and apparently the enemies were close enough so that the bonfire wouldn't activate, and I ended up getting mashed down when I was trying to activate it, so be very careful of that. As this guy goes crazy, I kick him, and then I do a couple slashes and take him down. But this is your first bonfire away from the fire link, and it's going to be one that you frequent a lot, purely just because of this part of the game. It's a really important position. Every time you use a bonfire, it resets all the enemies in the area, except for the ones that do not come back. So they're generally the more difficult enemies to fight, or the unique enemies, so just bear that in mind. And I should probably go over some of the misnomers and the information that the game doesn't tell you, and it probably should. And I will apologise if I miss anything, because I've done a lot of Dark Souls content at this point, and I've talked a lot about Dark Souls, so in my mind I've already covered all these topics ad nauseum, but because this is a guide, I feel like I have to at least retrace some of the steps. As I show you how powerful the kick is against the shield guys. The kick is so deadly, it's really good. But one thing I didn't know until far too late through the game is you can run and hold your shield up at the same time. It does not take away from your stamina any more than standard running. It is literally a block while you sprint, and it is really useful for certain moments, so make sure that you know that. This section here, make sure you buy the residence key. You can also buy the bottomless box if you want to, but I wanted to get the heater shield, because not only is the heater shield very light, but it's also a 100% block shield, and that's exactly what we're looking for. It's a really good shield as well. Also, this is a salesman, and if you don't need anything from him, feel free to kill him, because he does drop a katana called a Yushik Gatana, which is one of the best katanas on the game. He'll also give you the free orange guidance soapstone, so you can leave some messages for other players, or fuck with them and troll them. And a humanity, which is always cool. But things to know about katanas: as cool as they are and as cool as they look, they are a dexterity weapon. So if your character's not going to be following a dexterity path, they're not going to be as effective for you as they would be for somebody that does. But a couple more tips that I should tell people. Equip burden is really important on this game, and I'm going to be getting a ring really early on that enables me to move and roll at the quickest possible speed when I'm underneath 50% encumbrance, because the more armor and the more weight you wear, the more encumbrance you have. And that ring is the most powerful ring on the game, and it just makes it a lot easier because you can move fast while wearing armor, and you have a lot more iframes in your roll, which, to anybody that doesn't know what that means, it means that you will not take damage during your roll for much longer than you normally would. It is so powerful. The room I've just lured these guys away from has 3 people in it, and that's the reason why I've lured them out here, as I'm making a real bad job of these parry situations. I don't know why I'm not just attacking. Sometimes when I start recording, I feel like I have to show off, even though I generally don't, and all I do is make mistakes. But you know, sometimes you get a little bit cavalier, and it does cost you, especially on Dark Souls. But I've got to keep going through tips before they leave my brain. You can't attack people while they're standing up on this game like you could in Demon Souls, but you can if you stand behind them. The instant they stand up, you can chain backstabs. And if you're up against somebody big or somebody strong, this can be really effective. But bear in mind, a lot of the harder enemies, as they stand up, they will face you. So you have to accommodate for this and move your position to get behind them to try it. And the timing is not easy, because the window is kind of unique, but if you practice it, you should get okay with it. A beginner's tip as far as weapons go, this weapon I'm using right here, the S-Stock, is a rapier class weapon. And you'll notice I can keep my shield up while I attack, so it is one of the safest weapons you can use. The spears are the exact same, and if you're wanting a weapon that gives you, high security and good attack power, these are really useful against the AI. And an early one to find, which you saw in the first video, which is the weapon I'm using, is the S-Stock, which is just down in New Londo. Really, really good. Also, this is the area that you needed the residence key for, and that gold pine resin is going to make a joke of both the Taurus demon and the gargoyle boss fight. So, really powerful buff, that one. Thought I died then. That looked really rough. Why am I not healing? I don't know. But, back to basics anyhow. Shields. You need to make sure your shield has 100% physical block, or when you block an attack that is particularly strong, it'll actually chip your life a little bit, and that's what you want to avoid, because those wars of attrition with a bad shield can get you killed. The single most important statistic on the shield is stability. And stability is something that not a lot of new players really understand or really realise the benefit of it. And what stability dictates is how much stamina you lose when somebody attacks you when you're blocking. Obviously, the higher the stability, the better the shield. And that is such an important statistic that I'm going to go into later on, because it's so powerful. Oh, little note there, guys. You cannot riposte on stairs, because the game is just programmed bad. It doesn't register the hit at all, it just does a standard attack. And this character here is a Black Knight. So the first time you see this guy, he's pretty intimidating. He attacks really fast, he's got a lot of stamina, he does a lot of damage, and he's got a lot of life. But he's really susceptible to being parried, as you've just seen there. And this weapon that I'm using does get a buff on its criticals, so it can do a lot of damage. But some things to bear in mind with this character: there are only a select few amount of Black Knights in the game before you enter the kiln, and they have a percentage, a drop percentage, that they will give you one of their weapons when you kill them. And you have no idea how useful those weapons are. They are literally game breaking if you get one early, and you can get one off that guy there. It's all based on luck. And a couple of ways to kind of tip it in your favour would be to have 10 humanities on your body, which in the top left, do you notice how it says a number 1 in the font? If that says 10, which means you've used 10 humanities or you've acquired 10 humanities, your item discovery will be much higher than it normally would, and you have a higher probability of receiving a good drop item. Other ways to increase this is to wear something called the Gold's Covetous Serpent Ring, but you don't get that till much later through the game, and I will be showing you how to get that, I believe. Don't hold me on that though, because this is an efficiency guide. This thing here is a crystal lizard. Kill him quickly before he vanishes. You will get really good synthesis materials from him, as you just saw. But yeah, Dark Souls. Through here is a boss fog, but it's not immediately aware that it is, but you're going to see that in the next video. So thanks for watching, guys, and you take care now.